I'd like to call this June 24th meeting to order. Roll call.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Here.
Mr. Fruman?
Here.
Mrs. Hubner?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Dr. Heiss?
Here. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'd like to thank everyone for coming. A quick note, safety briefing. We do have 3 exits to your right. And we also have 1 exit up to my right. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We are going to have a consent agenda from 9.1 to 14.4. Mr. Tepper?
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes. Approval of the minutes. First, we have the minutes from the Policy Committee meeting, May 15th.
Move they be approved. Second.
Mr. Tepper?
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes. Now approval of minutes from the last regular meeting on May 20th.
Move to approve those minutes.
Second.
Mr. Tepper?
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes. And approval of the minutes of the special board meeting on May 28th.
And I move to approve those minutes as well.
Second.
Mr. Tepper?
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes. All right, on to correspondence. Do we have correspondence?
Yes, Dr. Heiss and Board. One piece of correspondence, just as a informational piece, is we received information from the Ohio Department of Education. The preliminary data for our OAA examinations are in. We are scanning and that data, and we'll get that report to you as soon as we can.
Great. Any correspondence? All right. Procedure for public commentary. This is not a public meeting, but a meeting held in public. We welcome your comments. If you would like to address the board, we have green cards up to the front. Fill them out, and we will get to that soon. Next up, candidate for graduation. Mr. Broadwater. Oh, Mr. Broadwater has changed.
Yes, I'm not Mr. Broadwater, but on behalf of Mike Broadwater and Anderson High School, I would like to extend Sarah Ann Sonnenberg her diploma, which she has earned by meeting all of our graduation requirements held forth by the Forest Hills School District Board of Education. And I don't know Sarah. I'm hoping she's here. Sarah, come on up.
Great.
It is recommended the board approve the granting of a high school diploma to Sarah.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
I believe her family's here, so I think they should be recognized. Now the real thing.
We did.
You did. Good.
It's official. It is official. All right. As I warned you earlier, and it's now time for public commentary. I have no green cards. Okay. District updates from the superintendent.
Yes, Dr. Heiss and Board. The district update is a short one again, but just wanted to bring the attention that while School for Students is out of session, our staff members are continuing to work to get ready as early as now for next year. Here's a couple examples. First of all, over 90 teachers in our district has, over the last few days, in a span of just roughly about 6 days, attended 326 different workshops to help better themselves in regards to being prepared for next year. Also, additionally, next week, actually the next couple of days, our administrators are going to be involved in some technology integration and leadership and productivity classes as well. So I just wanted to say thank you for the staff members for taking that time to participate in that PD.
Thank you. All right, board discussion.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Are we going to talk about the facilities?
I think this would be a good time.
Okay, I'm sorry. You caught me off guard. I thought we were
Yeah.
going to do this toward the end. I think last time, we had talked sort of loosely as a board about the potential for going back to the Ohio facilities. I think it's called the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission now. It used to have another name. I think our last study was in 2004. And as a tool for going forward with whatever we do with facilities, and to gather more information primarily, we had talked about, I think I had suggested, that we look into going back to them. And I think since that time, Rick and Ray looked into it a little bit, what would be required to do that. And there's a resolution that is sort of a boilerplate resolution from the Facilities Commission. And I know I expressed some concerns about sort of how pointed and detailed it was and expectations of us. And I believe there's been some work by the superintendent since then.
Yes, absolutely. As you had mentioned, for us to proceed to move forward, we do need a board resolution. We contacted the Ohio School Construction Commission for that resolution. They did send us that resolution. After reviewing that, Rick and I had some concerns. We shared that with some of the board members, that it is pretty specific in regards to almost the specific, not almost, the specific actions that we as a district would need to participate to move forward. So what Rick and I did early last week is we called the commission. We tried to get in contact with one particular individual. He was out, and we will be making more contact with him to see if there's any way that we can loosen up some of those guidelines in particular, and hopefully to get that done later this week.
I think when we think about using them, there's two parts to think about. One is using their service for evaluation, which I think we would all appreciate whatever knowledge and research and expertise they could bring to the party. The second piece of it is money that we would get from the foundation. Rick, can you help us remember where we stand in the list of school districts in the state of Ohio, and then also the amount of money that we would get if we chose to partner with them?
Right now, in their most recent fiscal year 13 eligibilities, we're 515th, or the 84th percentile going down. They don't have the percent listed. I think there's still some movement in there, but I would say between 15 and 25% is kind of the numbers that have been associated with that level in the past. I think they are now taking on new applications and will maybe determine some funding criteria at that point, but I would say between 15 and 25% would be what the co-op dollars would be, if you will.
But the fact that we're that far down the list, and my recollection was it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 15% a few years ago, and in order to qualify to get that, it was going to cost us more. We'd have to add items into our buildings that we probably would not have done otherwise to qualify for their money, so that it would have been a net negative for us. So the point I'm trying to make is the thought that we're going to realize funds from them is probably not something we should plan on, but to use their expertise and analysis, that makes perfect sense.
Well, I like the idea of updating the report we had from, I don't remember how many years ago.
2004.
2004, not 4 years ago.
No, 2004,
8 years,
yeah.
9 years
Nine
ago. Getting it updated made sense, and I was hopeful we could get it scheduled this summer when the kids are out. I'm a little disappointed that the OFCC's got a boilerplate resolution that they expect us to actually adopt. That, at least as I understand the language, suggests we're committing to something that I don't know how we can commit without first seeing the report. It puts the cart before the horse a little bit, but I would like to get something that we could pass that would allow us to get them in the door and doing their work still while the kids are out.
As I understand it, the other districts have signed it. And I think, when I read it, I thought, whoa, this is too, requires of us a couple things that we're going to be uncomfortable with. All of us, I think, would be uncomfortable with. But they're also doing this as sort of a service for sort of free, and it costs, how much money for them to do this, would you say? I mean, a lot of money.
Estimate $40,000, $50,000.
Yeah, and that's a lot of valuable information from professionals in their various fields, architects, engineers, et cetera. And, you know, I think we got 2 or 3 big binders, maybe more last time. It's really good information. So I get why they want some kind of a good faith commitment from us. The commitment that's in that is not good. And I don't know if they really have a total expectation. I don't know if it's that strong. That's why Dallas and Rick are still working on it.
I think they want to know that you're serious. Obviously, we're serious. We had issues on the ballot, so we're serious. I think the other thing to note is it's not just a facility review, but a demographics review, full scale from, you know, demographer. And the one thing, I mean, we don't have any firsthand knowledge, but the architects we've talked to have said there's still a little bit of a spread. To your point, Randy, it's not as great as it was. It used to be 25+% of a difference in of the expectations in their plan design, and I think it's smaller than that now. I mean, that we actually unsolicited had heard that from, but like I said, we haven't gone into it enough to know exactly what that is.
So what's the timing? When do we think we'll have a better feel for what kind of resolution will be accepted?
Well, our goal is to make contact again with them later this week, and we'll have something for the board in the near future.
Maybe next meeting then.
The other thing I was going to ask is if we would consider having a work session sometime to talk through what our plans are going to be. Obviously, we need to figure out when we're going to do this. It sounds like the answer is as soon as possible. But, you know, what else? And I'm not talking about rehashing a facilities plan. I'm talking about figuring out what's our plan going to be to get to the facilities plan, and what timing will we do. We really didn't have a plan B when plan A failed in May. So it would seem reasonable that we would want to get together and put a little effort into.
I'm not opposed to, although I think this is a good thing to move forward with because it's another good piece of information, I'm not opposed to letting the dust settle a little bit still before we go forward with what are we going to do next. And I don't know how long the facilities plan would take, or the new, with the facilities construction commission, I don't know how long that would take. I don't know.
Certainly, we've got to get it scheduled, and then they've got to complete it.
Right.
And then they've got to do the report. I don't know the timing, but if it's any earlier than 4 to 6 months, before they're finished and we get a report, I would be surprised.
The number 60 days is out there,
6
which I
days,
find.
what, to get them out here? Not to get a report.
That's out there.
I'm skeptical.
I've never seen a government agency work that quickly.
So you're saying,
But-
of course, you've heard 60 days for us to hear back from them with a full report?
That the report takes 60 days.
But engineers and architects are pretty efficient, so I'm optimistic.
Yeah, so it may
Still
be.
get it scheduled.
Right, we have to get it, yeah.
Well, that can be a question that we can definitely ask, is what is the approximate time frame
Sure.
from the beginning to end?
So we don't want to get together to talk about planning for this?
I think we should get together. I don't see any problem with scheduling and talking through. We're not committing to anything. In fact, I think part of the process is the OFCC report, but I don't know why we can't talk about process. Not what are we going to do. I think that decision is going to come later, but what is the process to get into the next decision? I think there's some merit to discussing that.
Ask,
Yeah.
are we all in alignment on that or not?
I'm okay with it. And the process is fine. I just don't know what information we have that we didn't have before, other than the bond issue failed. And we can evaluate that a little bit to talk about process, I suppose. Look at those results a little harder than we have maybe in a discussion, rather than, I think that would be beneficial. I'm okay with it.
Could we ask maybe Susan to poll and try and find a Saturday morning sometime in July? I think you said late July.
Would be better for me.
Okay.
Can we look at an evening?
Potentially an evening. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll start the email tree going. Okay.
So as far as moving forward, just to recap, Dallas, you'll let us know once you hear back from them. and we're all in agreement as far as the resolution or whatever we have to sign, we're not committing to anything.
And we're not, I'm hearing from the board that we're not totally comfortable signing that boilerplate resolution as is.
Right.
So that they can loosen up just a little bit on some of the terminologies. And Rick and I actually sat down and drafted some minor tweaks that we think that would be beneficial. If they would say that that would be fine, and we still could give that somewhat of a commitment that if we choose to go forward, this is the direction that we might want to go. But it's the most definite obligating the board or the district
Right.
to do
I mean,
something that we're afraid of.
I mean, the bottom line is, yeah, there was language in it that made it, basically, you need to, if you got the report, you had to use the report and had to use them without seeing the report, obviously, because that hasn't been done yet. So we were a little uneasy with that,
Didn't get the report back.
especially with 2 lawyers on the board.
I was gonna say, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm very uneasy with that, so.
Right.
Right, but if it doesn't wait until our July meeting, the chances of them coming out this summer is slim to me.
I agree.
So
Right.
we're not together again until our July meeting, correct?
Well, what we'll do is we'll see what it
Right.
comes up, and we may, yeah, I mean, that may be another,
Tracy was just
Special
making
meeting.
the point that if we're not going to pass a resolution until the July meeting at earliest, the likelihood of them getting out in the summer
August.
is not good.
Well, if they're not disruptive to the educational process, it might even be good for them to be in the schools when the kids are there, because that's the real life.
Well, it's going to be what it is, because
Right.
that
Really
resolution
control over
will get
that.
passed tonight.
right,
Okay.
all right. Any other items for board discussion? Okay. Next up, Betsy Ryan for Student Services.
Yes, we're on consent, right?
Student Services has 4 items for superintendent. What the superintendent is recommending, 9.1 is our Hamilton County DDS service agreement to conduct evaluation services for students who are birth to age 3, and these are mandated evaluations. 9.2 is an overnight field trip to New Orleans, February 26th to March 2nd of next school year by the Turpin band classes. Item 9.3 is a foreign exchange student who would like to be enrolled and attend Turpin High School for this coming school year, 2013-14. And our final item, 9.4, is our healthcare processing service agreement, and they assist us with the billing, training, and compliance requirements for Medicaid services. And those are the items for student services.
Great, thank you.
Can I ask a question on these? Is that appropriate right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Hamilton County Development Disability Service contract, is that amount up, down?
It is the
commensurate?
same for the past, probably since I've been presenting this item, for probably the last 8 years.
Okay.
Has
And those are,
not
I think you already
changed.
said those are mandatory, so.
Yes,
It's-
yes, we're required to conduct those evaluations.
And with the healthcare processing, same with that for the $12,000 that's costing
That
us?
is the same as last school year.
And that's obviously, that's a huge home run. I mean, we get over $150,000 in revenue
Yes.
from that agreement. They process that for us.
Okay.
So that's revenue we would not get without their help. So Betsy and our office work together on that item to make sure it happens every year and we fulfill the compliance requirements.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Next up, curriculum.
The curriculum would
Jackson?
be me, although this will be the last month that I will be doing curriculum. Okay, several things for the board to look at and vote upon. Item 10.1, a little bit frustrating for my part since I've been doing board policy now for the last couple of months, is that 10.1 is actually clarification. As soon as we passed a couple of resolutions and everything that we did for the last several months, we get a notice from Neola, the people that help us with our policies, saying that there were minor clarifications. And so I've passed that in front of you. So that's 10.1 is to vote on those clarifications. It does not change the intent of the policies at all. And I've shared this through with our policy committee members. Item 10.2 is the first reading of 3 new policies that will be up in front of the board for next month. Those are cellular telephone policy, safe operation of motorized utility vehicle policy, and positive behavior intervention and support policy, which is brought to us from the legislation. 10.3 is the second reading. This is the one that these 4 policies were placed in front of the board last month, and they are employment of administrators, some tweaks in that particular policy. The evaluation of principals, there's some date changes on that from our former policy. Evaluation of teachers on limited contract, that's a deletion of that particular policy to be replaced by a policy, standards-based teacher evaluation policy. So we've looked at those, and you've also had those in front of you. So those are to items 10.1, 2, and 3. 10.4 for the board is an agreement with St. Joseph Orphanage and AlterCrest Service Agreement. It's actually an agreement between those 2 organizations, and we're the fiscal agent for those different entities, and so we must approve them to move forward, and that's where St. Joe is actually looking at some contracting some services, some psychological services, and some nursing services through AlterCrest. Moving ahead, 10.5 are school fees. This is the time of year when we bring in front of the board the school fees for the upcoming school year. I'm very pleased to say that at the elementary level, those fees have not changed again for about the 3rd year. We've kept them at where they are. The middle school fees have not changed at all, and actually at the high school level, several of our class fees have gone down, and there's only been a couple that have gone up just a little bit. So I think a net overall is even at the high school level, our students, depending on what courses they'll be taking, those fees may go down a little bit for them.
Are we aligned between Turpin and Anderson? Because I think at one point we were not. Okay.
The only thing that a particular teacher in a particular class may ask for a different periodical or something, but so there might be a very small, slight fee there, but pretty much aligned as best we can across the board now.
Just one update on that I gave the board just to communicate it is that a little over 60% of those fees are now paid electronically, over $1.4 million. So that's 4 or 5 years ago, we switched to an automated system, and that's working and obviously eliminating a lot of the handling at the building level. And most of it is posted all the way through the system automatically as well. So that's working.
For the tuition, this for the elementary, the tuition versus fees, is tuition paid by regular students and fees are simple? That's all that's charged to the special needs students?
Special needs students would be, you're probably talking our preschool units?
Yeah.
Yeah, tuition would be paid by the regular ed students, and then if there's any fee involved in regards to materials of some sort, then that's the fee.
Okay.
Okay, moving along, still with curriculum. Thank you, Natasha. 10.6 is requirements of the Ohio Academic Content Standards for Social Studies in regards to Senate Bill 165. In that, our social studies curriculum team has been meeting quite often this year and is presenting to the board the social studies curriculum changes. 10.7 is 2 courses that we will have on display. These courses are called Historical Icons and Social Studies courses, and they are Iconic Leaders and Iconic Legends. A couple new courses that we'll have for our students to give. It is neat. If you really take a look at those, at what those are, they're really very interesting. 10.8, College and Career Readiness course. I am very excited about this course. We've been working on this one now for a couple years, and we're going to get it off the ground. And this course will help prepare our students for the ACT, SAT, as well as any other types of college prep, writings, and those types of things as well.
That's about interview techniques and
All
stuff
those.
too. I'm like, that's some neat stuff. I think all the kids could use.
And currently, we have enrolled. We have at least 2 to 3 of those courses going at each high school. They're identical courses, and I think as this catches on, though, most all of our high school students will probably end up taking this elective course. Okay.
Do we know, have they enrolled yet? I mean,
We are enrolling now. Yes,
They're
they've
enrolling
enrolled,
now.
and we have the numbers.
Okay.
I don't have
Assuming
those.
we-
Puppet, right, exactly.
That's
So assuming we approve it.
Yeah.
When we talk with parents who are considering a private school versus Forest Hills. That's one of the things you get asked about, and so I'm really excited that you're adding that.
Okay, 10.9, under curriculum is also a business course of study. This is basically our business teachers have met to put together their course of study, and it will also be available to be voted on at the next board meeting, and so it'll be online that you and others can take a look at that as well. I think that's it.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
On to 11, technology. Christine?
Technology has item 11.1, which is the HCCA contract. This is for our membership services, our EMIS, progress book, the whole litany of services that we get through HCCA. And item 11.2 is the Forward Edge contract for 2013-2014 as well. What question? I noticed you had, or you'd mentioned you had some questions regarding the Forward Edge.
Yeah, in the contract, I didn't actually see the term. Is that just 1 year?
Yes, it is.
And it starts July 1st?
How are things going with them? I mean, I know we've had issues with past people or businesses we've partnered with or vendors. How are we doing?
It ebbs and flows. It goes well some days and not so well other days. But what we have realized is from a departmental perspective, we need to change the way we do things as to not sabotage their efforts by a lot of mid-year deployments, I think, kind of took their efforts away from some of the tech support that they needed to be doing. So we're changing and modifying that this year. And this contract also, it's adding, it's having 3 support technicians that'll be in Nagel, Turpin, and Anderson to help support Power Up, as well as they'll also offer a sort of mentoring of students, any students that want to learn how to repair technology. They can come in when they have a study hall or other.
And are they open to that? Because I know you've brought that to us before, that students can work with them.
Yes.
It's them, right?
We're waiting till this is approved, and then we'll start getting the ball rolling to try to at least, advertise that this will be available to students if they're interested, and try to get them coming in to help us because they're some of our greatest assets.
So this is different, but incremental from what you were doing this past
Correct.
year. And you
Correct.
obviously have confidence in this company because it looked like to get
I
out of the
absolutely do,
contract
without question.
was going to be
Well,
painful, but
And there is a term in there, 7.1 provides for a 1-year term.
Okay.
And then it continues on a month-to-month basis with not the automatic renewal. It's one of the things I'll look for.
have you gone over this
Well,
carefully?
as Christine recalls, we were over this some detail last year. And yes, this got a lot of attention from Forward Edge's attorneys last year. They did a nice job of the contract.
And have our attorneys looked at it?
Yes.
They did, and we actually made a few modifications to it, but
It's
they
come a
were
long
very
way from
comfortable.
last year.
Absolutely.
I remember last year was an
Contract.
issue, that's why I wanted to make sure we were all holding hands on this one.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Human Resources Report. Kim?
Good evening. We do have a lengthy Human Resources report this evening. Item A, the retirement of Betsy Ryan after 12 years of service here in Forest Hills, but have no fear, there's good news ahead. Don't get excited. Item B, retirement Kenneth Riley, 21 years of service for Forest Hills as custodian at Nagel. We have a couple of resignations of our administrators. We have with us tonight Scott Gates. Scott's been with us in Forest Hills for 8 years. He's been the elementary principal at Mercer and has just done an amazing job for us there. He leads so many initiatives with our principals, and we really appreciate everything that he's done over the years. So thanks, Scott.
And may I add, Scott is leaving us for a director's position in another district, and I know he'll do a great job in that district, Scott. So congratulations for your kind of promotion, so to speak, or taking it. That's a great job. Thanks, John.
Lori Crow has resigned as assistant principal at Nagel Middle School. Lori's been with us for about 12 years, the last 7 of those being at Nagel as the assistant principal. And Lori also is taking a position as a principal in a neighboring district. Continuing on, other resignations, teaching staff. We have Christina Allen, Anne Marie DeCurtins, and Joy O'Brien, and non-teaching staff Julie Corzan. Item D is a reduction in force. And I'm not going to read the entire exhibit, but just make it known that the board has determined that a reduction in force in the non-teaching staff is necessary. And this contract is being suspended indefinitely effective June 30th, 2013, as a result of the position being abolished in accordance with revised code 3319.172. Resolutions, item E. You do have two resolutions there for in regard to STRS and SERS. Change of assignment, item F, and I'll give you just a moment to look through those. I guess it's just one. Item G, change of assignment. Brad Chamberlain is coming from being the assistant principal at Turpin High School to our coordinator of secondary programs. So we're very glad to know that Brad's going to be joining us here. And also another transfer is John Vandermeer, and I know he's here somewhere. John has been our assistant principal at Nagel for many years, and he is now going to, at least it's our recommendation, that he is being moved to the principal at Nagel Middle School.
If I may again, talked to a lot of candidates regarding these different positions, and what I really liked about John is when I met with John and we talked about, it wasn't, continuing in Nagel. It's a phenomenal building, and Natasha's done such great things. But John wasn't just for sitting on his laurels, and he really has a vision for the future for Nagel, and I really appreciate that. Thank you, John.
Going on, we have some additional change of assignments within teaching and non-teaching staff. Item H, assignments which are exceptions to the approved salary schedule, and you see 3 there. Salary schedule, it is for the substitute teacher salary schedule, and you do have an exhibit. A leave of absence for the 13-14 school year, Jennifer McCracken, a science teacher at Anderson. Item K is pertains to items L, M, N, and O. L are our appointments. Administrator, Elizabeth Del Campo Hartman, and Elizabeth, or Lizzie, as she likes to be called, was not able to be with us this evening. She had already arranged a vacation and was unable to change that for this meeting, but she will be coming to us as an assistant principal at Nagel. She comes from the Princeton district, where she was a science teacher, and the last couple of years she was an instructional coach, and we're very excited to have her. Joy O'Brien. Joy is with us this evening. Joy is moving from being a teacher at Nagel Middle School to one of our assistant principals. And again, very excited to have her moving into that position. And she brings a lot of knowledge of Nagel and the ways of Nagel and how to continue to move forward. And I promise you there was good news. Betsy Ryan, Director of Student Services. Susan Wells Brunke. Susan is also with us back there. And Susan is going to be joining us as the principal at Mercer Elementary. Susan, would you stand for just a moment? Susan comes to us from Wyoming School District, where she's been the assistant superintendent. However, like many of elementary people, she just felt that calling to go back to the building. She was, prior to her time at Wyoming, she was a building principal in Princeton, and so we feel very lucky to have her joining us at Mercer. Anything else, Dr. Johnson?
Oh, no, just again, what a great candidate. Susan brings with us a lot of great experiences, but just again, some work ethic that's going to be unbelievable, and very excited to have Susan on board.
Teaching staff, you do see a number of new teachers to our district here. Very excited. We have a lot of great candidates. Always have lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of applications for our positions. And so these folks rise to the top, the cream of the crop. Certified staff, we do have a tutor, an ELL tutor there on an as-needed or seasonal or intermittent basis. Non-teaching staff. Item M, special services appointment, and I'll give you just a moment to look through those. Those are just some miscellaneous special services. It goes on to page 5, page 6, And there you see those summer technology workshops on page 6. Those are the folks who are putting those together for our administrators and for our teachers. Item N, the appointment of a consultant or coach, in this case, a yearbook advisor. Item O, substitute personnel for the 12-13 school year. And since the board meeting of May 20th, staffing in the district decreased by 0.11 FTE. That was just due to some minor adjustments in bus routes. And the staffing level for the 2012-13 school year now stands at 769.09. The superintendent recommends that the board approve the human resources report.
So moved.
Not yet.
You know what, I'm sorry, we're on a consent agenda.
Yeah.
I take it back.
My job.
Yeah, well, you weren't gonna, yeah. All right, next up, business operations, Ray.
Good evening. 13.1 is replacement school buses. The item is to replace 2 of our 72-passenger buses based upon bids that were opened on June 3rd. Item 13.2 is renewal of our waste management and recycling contract. We issued a joint RFP with Marymount School District and are awarding the contract to Rumpke of Ohio effective July 1st.
And because we did that, Ray, can you share a little bit about, it's a cost savings to us, but also a significant cost savings for Marymount?
Yeah, we've gone into various relationships with both Marymount and Indian Hill, and it worked out that we actually reduced, for the second time, the last time we did this, we reduced our waste services with Rumpke. We reduced them again by an additional 4%. Marymount's is going to be reduced probably in the neighborhood of 15%. We've talked to their operational people about some other ways to do some things, and they may be able to drop it even further for them. So it's been a good relationship for both of us.
Thanks, Ray. Good job.
That's good, thank you, Ray. All right, treasurer report.
Item 14.1, we're requesting the board appoint a delegate and an alternate for the Ohio School Boards Association business meeting November the 11th, 2013. I'm not sure who's planning to attend, but
Randy?
I nominate Randy for being the first and Jim being the second. Can we do that? Make that motion?
Second?
we can put that with the consent agenda.
Oh, sorry.
How you want to move
Sorry,
forward.
let me just nominate them without motion out.
So Randy and Jim. Okay. And item 14.2 is the 2013-14 temporary appropriations for all district funds. Those are listed in the agenda. This gives us the spending authority as we start the year. We plan to bring back up permanent appropriations in the next month or two or three. But we will end this year and update the 5-year forecast and bring back permanent appropriations. But this gives us the spending authority to move forward July 1st. And item 14.3, we've been working, with bond counsel to look at our what refunding capabilities we have. We have a call date of the 2003 bonds of December 1st, which is our first date that we can actually refund or refinance the bonds that we have. Right now, those are on the books at 4.58%. The current rates are about 1.9. So based on that, we believe there's significant, between $250,000 and $300,000 in savings. The bulk of those are payable 2016. There's a little bit this 2020. Something else that we may do with this resolution is look to that little piece that's left in 2020 is to refinance that as well. But this gives us the ability to do that. Very formal process, but money that's available to save. So we want to take full advantage of that. So we're asking the board to adopt the resolution authorizing refunding of the district's Series 2003 bonds. And then the treasurer's report, item 14.4, significant donations. Lots of our PTA after prom. The biggies, obviously, Anderson's PTA donated a sign at $30,000, which is you've probably seen, and Summit Elementary PTA over $12,000 in technology equipment. Once again, every month we have significant donations from our partners. In the statement of board accounts, all accounts are in good condition. We do have 3 where we're actually having negative fund balances or waiting in advances to be received. All 3 of them in the 500 funds, 551, 572, and 587. Item C, we have the general fund receipts. Keep in mind this is a little bit over projection, but the county auditor actually publishes their estimated revenue prior to our last operating levy approval. So March of 12 is when we got a lock on the revenue, and so our revenue doesn't include what was actually passed in March of 2012. So we're over 100%, but the 5-year forecast reflects where we expect it to be, not the county auditor's certification of that. So I keep that in mind. That's their certification of what they will certify for us moving forward, which is not the same as what we in the Board of Education has passed with regard to our 5-year forecast. In item D, we have the general fund expenditures by function, and E, the expenditures by object. A little over, almost 92% of our planned appropriations have been spent or encumbered. A little over 89% of our appropriations have been spent at month end, and as I've communicated to the board, this running a tight year, which is the way we'd like it to be. I mean, we're running a tighter appropriation. We've been in a kind of a really don't buy it unless you need it mode for quite some time, and that's obviously the moving forward strategy is being very tight with our appropriations, and I think you're going to see this. We want that to be 89, 88% of our appropriation. That allows the 5-year forecast to be a truer picture of how we're doing. Obviously, if we have any spending change or pattern change, that obviously could sway the 5-year forecast in a way that isn't a truer picture of that. In item F, we have the monthly bank reconciliation. G, list of investments. H, our amendments to the appropriations. We have 6 different funds where we're reducing the appropriations. We also plan to make changes in estimated revenue for state and federal programs due to funds not being received until after June 30. This is a kind of a compliance time frame where the county auditor has a last day of the year meeting to allow us to kind of make sure all of our funds are in balance. Estimated revenue cannot exceed actual, appropriations cannot exceed estimated revenue. So we have not only the appropriation adjustments, but we will have revenue adjustments that we'll send to the county auditor tomorrow morning to be in line with that, as our year-end compliance is a priority. In item I, we are asking the board to approve the travel allowance mileage rate of 56.5 cents per all of our negotiated agreements. That matches the current at fiscal year beginning IRS rate, which that is what the IRS rate is currently. Item J, we're asking the board to approve the establishment of a petty cash fund in the treasurer's office. Item L, transfer of funds. Item K is a list of the district support organizations for 13-14. These are organizations that have met the basic criteria of being basically a 501c3, a nonprofit. That actually gives them school-related organization status with regard to having access to our facilities, and some of the lease agreement information speaks to that. We also receive fundraiser paperwork for them as well, but that list continues to grow. In item I, L, we have the transfer of funds to the Permanent Improvement Fund. As you remember, every year in June we transfer the turf revenue as well as the maintenance costs saved from both projects. Therefore, that the gift that both our athletic booster groups gave the district doesn't cost us ever. It's something that will always be paid for replacement-wise by the rental dollars that come in, and Ray and his office manages that, and those dollars continue to be phenomenal, and we have budgeted to replace those at scheduled times, and the dollars are there to do it, so it should not be an issue there. In item M, we are requesting the Board of Education adopt a resolution requesting the county auditor to make the advances. Obviously, every Monday we ask for any money they have. and we want to continue to do that, so they pay us. And just a note, on last Tuesday, the 18th, we did have another Business Advisory Committee meeting, and some of the, I mean, really good discussion. I welcome any of you that would like to attend on the board and administrative staff, but some of the things we talked about were an update on the state funding and the 5-year forecast, just a recap of the bond issue. Obviously, they're all in different communities, and we get a good feel for what their thoughts are, which would be a good group to reach out to if you ever really need to talk to, trying to get an idea. They're all over the board, but all have great ideas, and they care about public education and spending tax dollars wisely. We talked about tax increment financing, how the current TIF works and how the money works for all the parties that are receiving it. I updated them on refinancing our bond, as well as kind of an overview with our collective bargaining agreements and what's included and what it all means as we get together with our groups moving forward. So all that is recommended the board approve the consent agenda, which is 9.1 through 14.4, with the note that 4 of those items are informational items, in that they're readings. I want to say, hold on one second here and I'll do that. I know it's 10.2, 10.7, 8, and 9. Those are the 4 items that are really notification items to the Board of Education. So it's recommended the board approve 9.1 through 14.4 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
There is at least one group and maybe 2 in item K in the treasurer's report that is now PTO. Anderson is no longer a PTA, it's now a PTO. And did Maddox do the same thing? No, it's just Anderson so far. So technically speaking, it should be PTO, because they work very hard on that and they're very proud of it, so.
What's the difference between a PTA and a PTO?
I think it's a lot of it. I think a lot of it's.
I'm sorry. Just
No, I mean, you want the short version?
I want the short version.
Yeah.
What did Peggy say?
How much money you have to pay to the national organization?
It's oversight. It's also, I mean, in a positive way too. It's sometimes you get support from PTA on sort of more global things, but it was a decision that it wasn't beneficial to Anderson anymore to be a PTA organization. It would be more beneficial to be a PTO. So they're starting over.
Peggy had the short answer.
Yeah. They're starting over.
We'll make that adjustment. We're aware of that. It's a 7-1, I believe, is the adjustment, so we'll make sure that item is reflected with that.
Any other discussion? Mr. Tepper?
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes. Moving on to reports to the Board of Education, the Forest Hills Foundation report.
The Forest Hills Foundation for Education had their regular board meeting on May 15th at 6:30 p.m. They reported on, among other things, the completion of the 5K walk run. It was a great event, as it always is. They had about 2,000 runners. We reported on it actually last month. What was different about this is they finally had the numbers in. And it was a good event, and that event continues to provide significant funds for the good work that the foundation's doing, so everybody continues to support the walk run. Thank you very much, and in particular, thank you to Beth Davis and Jenny Nyack for all the work they put into that. Also, as I reported last month, the foundation had hired Smith Ferris Junkers to provide some consulting, do a lot of work, provided the report. The foundation spent some time digesting that, and one of the conclusions they've reached is the alumni associations for both Turpin and Anderson high schools are really fundamental to the success and continued viability of the foundation. So they formed a new team, the alumni, is it right, alumni team? I think that's what they're called. And Tiffany Heath has stepped up to the plate, as she so often does, and is going to be leading that team. So thank you, Tiffany. There were the other usual reports from the other teams, and Dee Stone provided the executive director's report. But for the most part, the focus was on the review of the Smith-Beers-Junker report and the creation of the alumni team.
All right, thank you. Legislative Liaison report.
Most important thing going on right now is the budget, which the state is supposed to have by law completed at the end of this month, ready for next fiscal year, actually next biennium. I've given you a written report, but on the second page in the middle are the key items that are taking place. As you probably know, the governor starts out with a budget, gives it to the House, then it goes to the Senate. And of course, when those two can't agree, there's a conference committee, and that's where it is right now. A couple key things that are taking place, being worked out through the conference committee. One of them is the likelihood that they would restore some funding levels for various aspects that actually might impact us. I think the very first budget, and Dallas or Rick, correct me if I'm wrong, we were going to be flatlined just about as far as we could see. We'd never get another increase, a dime one from the state. With the budget that came out of the House, and I think that went over to the Senate, there was some possibility that in the future we might actually get more money from the state, but that I think is still TBD because there are a lot of deducts that they haven't determined. It's kind of like filling out your income taxes. There's some pluses and some minuses, and we don't know where that's going to, where the deductions are going to come in yet. So that's still a very hot item. Two other things: the vouchers, I understand, unfortunately, are still in some fashion, both of the budgets, and so I think it's unlikely that those would fall out in the conference committee. The third thing is something that doesn't impact Forest Hills a lot, but coming out of the Senate, there was an amendment that would cause a JVC, Joint Vocational School board members, to not be elected, or not be elected board members from their home school districts, and they would simply be appointed. And matter of fact, they couldn't be an elected official.
By who? Who appoints them?
The boards of education.
In the school district?
In the school
In
district.
which they sit?
Right.
And it's interesting that, actually, we were talking this afternoon, not even sure what our representation is to Oaks, which is our JVC.
Because we do send students to the Oaks. And actually, I did call their superintendent today. I haven't got a return call yet to talk about that. I know we are represented, but not specifically with a board member as other larger districts, not larger, but districts that have more students going to the Oaks. But that board member would be appointed by those individual school boards from the business community. And then there are certain criteria that those board members would have to have as well.
It was fairly restrictive, and I think one of the issues was that group would have taxing authority or the authority to place a tax levy, and they're not elected officials. They're not really accountable to anyone other than their home board. And so that was obviously an issue. I've talked with a number of state senators and a number of state reps, and there was very little justification for that, other than that there's somebody in the Senate who's got an issue with the way things are currently being handled, which really wasn't a satisfactory answer, but that's where they are, and I believe it's still in. I know that there's quite a buzz on the JVC community because they obviously don't agree with that, but I just wanted to point that out. So those are the three hot issues that I saw coming out of the bill, and stay tuned and we'll find out what comes out, whatever it is, at the end of 2 weeks from now.
So you didn't hear any reason why they were doing that with the
JVC.
I mean, usually there's at least something, but I couldn't find it.
I heard some informal reasons, but nothing that was a fact-based.
Reasoning behind it.
Yeah. Somebody had an issue with a JVC, and this is a way to deal with it, I guess. I don't know.
As sometimes legislation gets created that way.
That's true. All right, next up, the Saga Report.
We, as a school board, are individually attending the Saga meetings. Tracy actually set that up with Saga and at their request. And so the first one was June 4th, and I was the first to go. So just some highlights. Saga is considering a parent health and wellness committee with one rep from each building, and they're working with Phil Sinkovich on that. The results of the recent Pride Survey and Parent Survey and Youth Summit were all discussed by Karen Schwarmberger, who is the Drug Prevention Liaison with Saga. The Youth Summit I think we talked about that earlier. It was held this spring. There were 89 students, and it was a great event. Leah Beck, the director of Saga, talked about the history of Saga, and she also discussed moving forward. It seemed like they were regrouping. It was like a new group. It was sort of a new year for them. Coalition and working groups. And those working groups will be awareness, advocacy, environmental issues, healthcare, the Youth Summit, youth event, communication, and student advisory group. The one thing that I took away from the sort of the statistics that Karen Schwarzenberger gave about the 2 surveys and the Youth Summit was kids universally say, parents, we want you to talk to us. Keep talking to us. Not don't beat us over the head and tell us don't do drugs, but talk to us. Ask us what we're doing. Ask us where we're going. Ask us what's going on. I mean, you'd be surprised how much you get. So that was the big takeaway. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was fun.
Okay. Next up.
I move that we adjourn to executive session for the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, and to prepare for, conduct, or review collective bargaining strategy.
Second.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes, our next regular board meeting is on July 22nd, 2013, at 7 o'clock in this room. I don't anticipate any further action to be taken at this meeting. Thank you for coming.